Becky, I'm going to make a statement that I want you to challenge. I believe that everything a person does, they do as a member of a team. By that I mean that what a person does builds on the work of other people.
Wait a minute, Greg. I just painted my house all by myself. I wasn't part of a team.
Well, you did the work of painting yourself, and you deserve the credit for that. But you also made use of supplies that someone else made. You know, the brushes, the rollers, the ladder.
Oh, yeah. I had the help of someone to mix the paint at the hardware store.
Right. And anyone who helped you reach your goal was a member of your team.
You mean my painting success depended on the work of others?
Sure. Here, anyone who helps us reach our goal is a member of our team. That includes custodians, secretaries, clerical staff, and the clients.
Makes sense.
Since teamwork is so critical, it's important to spend some time discussing healthy and unhealthy teams, how differences are handled on a team, and team skills that you can develop.
Sounds useful.
First off, let's define our terms. What's a team?
Well, a team is a group of people who work together, like a football team or a baseball team.
Right. A team has a common purpose or goal. What else?
Well, team members work together to reach that goal.
Team members work to identify and solve the problems that are keeping the team from reaching the goal.
That sounds like what we do here.
It is. The bottom line is that we're solving problems and working through differences. That takes healthy communication. This may sound strange, but I expect disagreement and differences.
Why?
Well, because whenever you get people together who are really interested in solving a problem, but who have different life experiences, there's bound to be conflict and differences of opinion.
Huh.
Members have different opinions because they have different perceptions due to their different experiences.
Are you saying that differences are natural?
Sure they are. In fact, we choose people with differences to make up the team in the first place.
Like professional consultants and management and direct contact staff.
Right. You know what happens when you have team members who don't ask questions and challenge one another? You get a disaster, like the Challenger shuttle disaster.
You mean where the space shuttle blew up just after it took off?
That tragedy killed 7 people, and it was due directly to a failure of the team process. Team members who had information about the design flaw in the rockets that led to the crash didn't challenge other team members. If they had presented their differences, then the team could have decided against the fatal launch.
You mean that I can avert a disaster?
Sure. Maybe it's not a national disaster, but it could be disastrous for the client or for a coworker.
But I've always thought differences were bad.
It's not the differences that are bad, it's the way the differences are handled. I observe a lot of teams, and I work on several. I've noticed that on healthy teams, communication is open. Differences are expressed openly, and people discuss and argue to shed light on the subject.
Well, how do you mean?
Well, the differences usually lead to more alternatives than one person could have come up with on their own.
So team members have a wider range of alternatives to choose from.
Right. They select the alternative that advances them toward their goal. And as a result, team members are committed and excited about working to bring about a solution.
Well, that sounds good, but aren't there a lot of hard feelings? Don't the more experienced people kind of team up against the less experienced people?
Well, first off, you learn early on to separate the person from the problem and not take differences so personally. Nobody wants a disaster.
Like with the Challenger.
Either the whole team wins or the whole team loses. Personal victories come at the expense of other team members. So you learn to put the team's success ahead of your personal success. That's why it's in my interest as a team member to see you, another team member, succeed and to help you learn.
So team members learn from one another to become better problem solvers. I'll bet it feels better to get differences out in the open and resolved.
On a healthy team, you get a feeling of accomplishment, a sense you belong, and an increase in your commitment to work through differences. It becomes a real pleasure to be able to work effectively with others and to communicate openly.
What about unhealthy teams?
Well, on an unhealthy team, differences of opinion still exist, but they aren't expressed. The communication is what I call closed.
That's like children being seen and not heard.
The same thing. Maybe one person, the leader of the group, states his opinion, and everyone else nods agreement. Later, they go home and kick the dog. Maybe whisper behind his back, "I knew so-and-so was wrong all the time."
That sounds frustrating.
It is, because nothing's really accomplished. The differences of opinion are held in, so the conflict's never resolved. People push paper, they go through the motions, but they don't reach a successful resolution.
Well, there aren't as many alternatives to choose from.
Right, and without many alternatives, how can you make quality decisions?
You can't. Sounds like it creates tension.
People carry it around inside of them instead of working it out.
Are you saying that it's possible to do something about an unhealthy team situation?
Sure. No team is totally healthy or totally unhealthy. We're moving towards one extreme or the other. So whether it's at work, in a relationship, or in your family, you owe it to yourself to be honest and to speak out about differences so they can be resolved.
I was at a team meeting the other day, and it's pretty intimidating to speak out in front of all those people. Deep down, I guess I'm afraid of being told I don't know what I'm talking about.
The point is, do you have more stress and tension by not saying something and holding it in, or by saying something and getting it over with?
I see. By saying something and getting it over with, I have less tension, but it's still scary.
Sure, it's scary, but isn't it amazing how our own fears are successful at oppressing us?
How?
Well, no one else needs to tell me to shut up if I'm telling myself to shut up. You say you can't communicate with these other people, so you don't communicate. But while the meeting's going on, you're sitting there, building up barriers in your head, saying to yourself, "I can't talk to these people."
I've done that before.
What you've done is you've distanced yourself from the other team members. It takes courage to overcome your fear of looking stupid, of being fired. But remember the Challenger disaster. By saying something, you may avert disaster.
And I owe it to the clients.
You owe it to yourself to take a risk. If you don't expose yourself, you don't expand yourself. It's not easy, but that's the price you pay to improve the quality of your life. And that's really what we're talking about, improving the quality of life.
How come I didn't learn about this in school?
Well, we're not born as team players. In fact, a lot of our education teaches us to be selfish.
You mean like competing for grades and trying to be popular?
Exactly. You put two selfish people together in a relationship, and it's no wonder the relationship lasts an average of about 6 months.
6 months?
And since that's an average, that means some people are buzzing in and out of relationships faster than a good kiss.
Because we've never learned to be team players.
Let me show you a situation that calls for teamwork skills. In this demonstration, you'll see a lot of what's needed for successful teamwork. We have a problem. One person doesn't know how to tie a man's tie. We have knowledge. Another person who does know how to tie a man's tie. The two people are willing to work together towards the common goal of learning to tie the tie. The team members are Jim and Leslie. Now, Leslie doesn't know how to tie a tie, and Jim does know how to tie a tie.
Okay, first off, you need to make the narrow end just a little more short than it is. That's good, just like that. And then what you do is you take the wide end and wrap it around the narrow end 1.5 times. Okay, wait, okay. Put the wide end on top of the narrow end. That's good. Bring it around underneath the narrow end. Boy, that's good. And one more time, just like before. Over, good. Bring it straight down. That's it. Now what you want to do is bring that wide end up next to your throat, underneath the crossed over piece.
Like,
Uh-huh.
like this?
Like that. And then you want to put the wide piece underneath that top crossed over piece. That piece right there. Very good. Uh-huh. Slide it down, just like that. Uh-huh. And then if you tighten the knot by pulling down a little bit on the wide piece. That's it. And then it's a slip knot. All you have to do is slide, grab a hold with your hand and hold the knot and slide it up while pulling down on the narrow piece. And that should do it. Perfect. And then all you have to do is kind of fix your collar, pull it out and fold it over. Good. That's all there is to it. Very
Thank
nice. You're welcome.
Okay, we just had an excellent demonstration of teamwork. Was there a common purpose?
Yes, to learn to tie a tie.
Why not just tie the tie for her?
Well, because then she'd still depend on someone to tie it the next time.
Right. The goal here is independence. How is this an example of transdisciplinary?
Well, transdisciplinary is team members teaching one another. And here we had one team member, Jim, showing another team member, Leslie, how to do something.
Good. Now we have two skilled people instead of just one. Jim is more valuable because he's improved his teaching skills. Leslie is more valuable because she's learned a new skill. And together, they're a better team.
I see.
It's not easy to take something as easy and as routine for you to do as tying a tie and then break it down into steps so the other person can understand it.
They both had to be flexible in giving and receiving instructions, adjusting and compromising. If one way didn't work, Jim had to change instructions.
That's back to communication, isn't it?
Yes, good communication.
Good communication is central to effective teamwork. What's needed for good communication?
Openness to differences.
What does that take?
A good listener and a good speaker.
Sure. Listening means being actively involved by learning to resist distractions.
Like turning down the TV and radio.
Right. And by looking at the speaker. Listening is trying to get the meaning of what a person says instead of being thrown off by irrelevant details.
Like what a person is wearing or the words they use.
Sure. Or being put off when your pet idea is stepped on.
You know, I get overwhelmed with all the facts.
Well, no one can remember all the facts. Listen for central ideas and jot them down in a notepad. Don't be afraid to ask someone to repeat what they said.
Well, you know, sometimes it's easier just to avoid those situations.
But then you don't improve your listening skills. Our minds need to exercise to grow. And like any exercise, your mind might get tired out. But you'll be more capable the next time. Now let's take speaking. Good speakers respect their listeners.
Like how?
Well, by speaking to get your point across, not to impress people. As a speaker, you're responsible for saying something worthwhile to listen to, and in words that I can understand.
What if I'm not sure you understand?
Then make sure by asking.
That's showing respect for the listener, too.
It sure is. So is paying attention to your timing. Maybe the listener is busy with something else. Now may not be the best time to bring up your concern.
What about when you're speaking about a touchy issue, like someone breaking a rule?
Focus your attention on the person's behavior as it relates to the problem. Stay away from making negative comments about the person.
Could you explain that a little further?
Sure. Let's say a razor is left out. Stick to describing what happened. Instead of name-calling like, "You careless so-and-so," or blaming the person.
Like instead of saying, "John, that was all your fault," you could say, "A razor was left out, a client picked it up and injured himself. What happened, John?"
Exactly. And by asking questions, you can explore alternatives for what the person could do in a similar situation the next time. So, there you have it, Becky. Teamwork is the name of the game.
Everything I do involves teamwork.
That's why understanding teamwork is so important. And that's what we're after. Because if the team has been successful, then you've been successful. Well, see you next time.
I'll look forward to it, Greg.